Hello and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan. Ladies and gentlemen, we as a nation have crossed 30 crore vaccinations. And as we are, as India, as Bharat, busy trying to inoculate our people and also empower them against this virus, our neighbor seems to be doing a pest control of its own, but albeit of a different kind. Perhaps they have bred a tad too many and now have decided that there are those who are past their sell-by date and they can be dispensable. Those who were treasured by the establishment and guarded with the highest levels of security today find themselves vulnerable. Wanted by India, wanted by the US, wanted or proscribed by the United Nations, but sheltered, shielded and respectable citizens in Pakistan today find themselves under the threat. Today find themselves redundant and dispensable. We are talking about the blast near Hafiz Saeed's residence just about 120 meters away, and perhaps that was aimed not just to maim but also take his life. And it could not have happened in Johar Town in Lahore had not the establishment in Pakistan itself said, let it be. Had it not been a subcontract by one within the establishment saying, let's get rid of him now before there is perhaps another Osama-like strike on our backyard. Let's try and understand first up why we believe here at CNN News 18 through very, very reliable sources that Pakistan actually wants to eliminate Hafiz Saeed. The Americans are upset with Pakistan after their refusal to host bases that could provide air support to the Afghan forces. Pakistan worried of another Osama-type, operation in their own backyard, and they can't afford that embarrassment. Attempt to eliminate Saeed before Osama 2.0 by the US. And he actually has outlived his utility as Pakistan's terror arm against India, because the Pakistanis believe they now have the Taliban. They are engaging more with the Jaish and other outfits, breeding new outfits and perhaps new leaders. So let's do away with the old ones. Global heat on Pakistan due to Hafiz Saeed, and he continues to remain a sore point. One of the action points was action against the likes of Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed, proscribed terrorists. This is also a requirement under the FATF. Now, how the dots connect themselves. Interestingly, Imran Khan was at the ISI office headquarters in Islamabad only yesterday. There are pictures which are out. There was a serious discussion. Federal ministers and top members of the ISI and the Pak establishment, deep state, were all present there. Major ministers part of this meeting. And just a day after, you have this blast in Johar Town. The blast near Saeed's residence, just the very next day. No action by the cops despite suspected bike reported near the area, and they were doing multiple rounds, and security surprisingly was lax. Otherwise, there is a 3-tier level. It's a fort-like security which is there. His house itself is a sub-jail. Ironically, he was away in a safe house, Hafiz Saeed, not where he was supposed to be. Now, sources telling us that this entire activity is very, very clandestine because it cannot be directly linked to the Pak establishment, because the repercussions, the blowback will be too hot for the Imran Khan establishment to be able to handle this. Because we've seen what the likes of the Tehreek-e-Labbaik can do. So Johar Town blast, a Rawalpindi plot is what we ask. Hafiz redundant for ISI is the hashtag. At News 18 is the handle where you can engage with us here on the News 18 network. Coup is the platform. There is a poll which is out. Do take the coup poll of the day, and we'll get you the results towards the end of the debate. Let's go across to our guest, Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal, former Army Commander, Northern Command, is with us. Kamar Chima, Pak strategic and political analyst, is with us. Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza, POJK political activist, is with us, and so is Sushant Sareen, an expert who's been studying the developments and who was one of the first to tell us here at CNN on The Right Stand that the Pakistanis have upset the Americans. They have not just snubbed the CIA director, they're also refusing the bases. And there will be repercussions. But there is also a larger impact and a larger angle to all of this, as I was telling you. The amount of fundamentalists who took to the streets with the Tehreek-e-Labbaik itself shows the blowback the establishment would have received. Now, Sushant Sareen, as I start with you, how do you see, how would you view the sudden shift? And are we connecting the dots aptly?
You know, Anand, it's still very early days, but the questions which you ask are the questions which everybody would be asking. Because here was this man who probably enjoyed security, which was probably even better than that of the head of state. And he was treated as one of the most important men in Pakistan. This kind of lack security, and I've had the misfortune of having met this fellow in his Johar Town house, but that was about almost 20 years back. And I remember even then the security was very tight. The main road outside his house, it had 2 or 3 police barriers, and then there was a pillbox outside the house. So it was in a very secure area, or at least it had been secured. Now for somebody to just simply amble across and put a vehicle-borne IED, which is what is now being said, and not be questioned, not have anybody vet him, does raise very serious questions. It is possible that because he was not there, maybe the security was a little lax. Maybe whoever has planted this bomb had done it because he realized that security is starting to be a little lax. But the fact that it is happening so close to his residence clearly is a signal. Look, if it was, if they'd wanted, they could have just as well, rammed a vehicle or something in his house. The fact that didn't happen was that this is probably a signal to this fellow. But what exactly lies behind it, I think, in a matter of a few days, we'll get to hear some more buzz, what's happening out there, and we'll be able to make more sense of what is happening. But clearly, this is a very curious kind of a thing. Please also remember that, Hafiz Saeed's son, there was a bomb attack near a rally where he was supposed to address.
Yeah.
This is not too long back, a few months, maybe a year or so back. And there was this bomb attack out there and a couple of people had died. And unfortunately, that bomb, the way it was placed, did not go out, but went in to where, that shop where it was placed. So the despicable man probably escaped with his life. But clearly, that was also a signal to these fellows. So I think those signals are being sent. By whom, it is very difficult to say. There is a kind of an effort and a tussle within the organization itself. Because Hafiz Saeed was seen to be very loyal and virtually a lapdog of the military establishment. Whatever the military would ask him to do, he would do. So if, for example, there have been a spate of cases against him, you've not heard a peep out of the man.
Correct.
You've not heard a peep out of his followers.
Correct.
But there are other people within the organization who are not taking very kindly to what they see, that because of Pakistan's own exigent circumstances, having to clamp down on their loyal terrorist group, virtually their state auxiliary, I think that is something which is causing a lot of bad blood. So whether this is an internecine conflict, whether this is the ISI, whether this is some other agency which is trying to send a signal, it's difficult for me to say right now. I think we are in the realm of speculation.
Well, there is a sectarian conflict even between these terrorist outfits, between the Deobandi and the Barelvis. There is a fight which is also there, which has been on for a while.
Anand, this guy is not a Deobandi or a Barelvi. This guy is a LA Hadith fellow, right? He's a Wahabi. Number one. Number two, I don't think that seems to be the case out here, unless, of course, one of those other terrorist groups has been outsourced this job of either sending the signal or hitting out at this fellow.
Correct.
I don't think the Shias would be so much involved in targeting him, because the Lashkar-e-Taiba has not exactly been known for targeting Shias inside Pakistan. The Deobandi groups do it. I would probably, if I had to put my money on somebody, I would either put it in an internecine conflict within the organization, or I would put it on ISI, which either of the two people have the maximum access and a maximum ability to carry out an attack.
Right. I'm just going to go across to Dr. Amjad Mirza. He's just shared a tweet with me, and this is Gul Bukhari's tweet. Gul Bukhari has just put in a picture of Hafiz Saeed at the hospital today. So Gul Bukhari has just tweeted this, and I'm showing this. This is Hafiz Saeed at the hospital in Lahore today, and he's shaking hands with somebody. And if you see this person here, I'm going to hold it this way. If you see this person, I'm going to try and zoom in if I can into the picture. Apologies if it's a little messy here, ladies and gentlemen. It's just that there are blood stains on his shirt. Now, if you see this picture, this is what Gul Bukhari has tweeted. And I'm going to say this is what Gul Bukhari tweeted, and that's Hafiz Saeed there. Hafiz Saeed at the hospital, at the Jinnah hospital, where the injured have been kept. So clearly, there is a connection with where the blast happened. Those who have been injured, we are given to understand two are dead. Amjad Ayub Mirza, why is Hafiz Saeed at the hospital? Why is Hafiz Saeed at the hospital? And why is Gul Bukhari putting out this picture if it had nothing to do with the Lashkar?
Well, that's a very valid question, but I think that if we look at a broader picture, Imran Khan was called by the DGISI to attend a National Intelligence Coordination Committee meeting, and General Bajwa has flown out of Pakistan. He was in Azerbaijan, and I'm sure Qamar Chima doesn't know where he is now. So we would speculate that something very serious is going on in Pakistan. And this attack on Hafiz Saeed is, I think, it's an ISI job. And if this photograph is truly of today that Hafiz Saeed is visiting the hospital, that means that they are absolutely defiant now. And that means that inside the ISI, there is also a section that is supporting the jihad going on in Afghanistan. As you know, recently Pakistani army officers have been arrested in near Tajikistan border as well. But it is a very confusing situation. You know, Pakistan has got to a position where you cannot speculate who is killing whom. Everybody is killing each other because of their own, to protect their own vested interests. And FATF is coming on in July. So it could be very well orchestrated by the Pakistani deep state to, जैसा आपने शुरू में फरमाया, to get rid of these people who we do not need now.
जो परेशानी का सबब बने हुए, there's been some activity in POJK also. वहाँ पर भी there also people have been killed along with those who have been advocating or who have been taking on the establishment, and also who have now become perhaps a bit of a millstone around the neck of the establishment.
Exactly. You see, I am interested in knowing if Chima knows where his army chief is right now. I'm sure he hasn't got a clue.
I'll bring in General Jaswal since Qamar Chima has been asked this question. Qamar Chima.
Well, I don't know. I think General Bajwa is outside the country in its official position. So what's the point in that, you know?
Where is he?
I don't know. Maybe somewhere in Central Asia. He's on official visit.
No.
You can Google and check.
General Bajwa has run away from Pakistan. He will not return until the alleged coup that was going to take place against him. All those are arrested. Oh yeah, of course. He is not in Central Asia. He flew from Azerbaijan to Turkey near Ankara. There's a military air base. He was flown to Germany. He is in Germany. He took the flight called Gulfstream G450. He is accompanying him.
You got a good
7 officials. He will come back.
Enjoy it.
But after he's got a green signal that everything has been sorted out back home, because there was an attempt. There was going to be an assassination attempt on your army chief.
Interesting turn of very interesting turn of events. In one wonders what is happening in Pakistan. Everybody is killing everyone, or nobody knows who's killing who. Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal, and then I'll come to Qamar Chima. General Jaswal, interesting turn of events. Amjad Ayub Mirza says that there was a mutiny attempt within Pakistan army also, and General Bajwa has now fled to, has gone off to Germany and he's gone via Ankara. That was his claim. Now we'll see if General Bajwa actually surfaces in Germany. But the fact is, General Bajwa has gone off to Germany. There's an attempt or a coup attempt against him or a mutiny within the Pak army itself. And on the other hand, you have Hafiz Saeed, an attempt to bump him off and a bomb blast at his place. What do you make of this situation in Pakistan?
Yeah. First thing first, I'm not aware as to where General Bajwa is, whether he's fled the country or not. He's still in control of the army. I think the coup attempt which was there, the facts are yet to emerge. And important line which you used as far as Hafiz Saeed is concerned, that it'll be a big embarrassment for Pakistan if something happens to Hafiz Saeed. Even the ex-ISI chief, Durrani, in his book, Spy Chronicles, had said, when asked specifically about Saeed, he had answered that to prosecute Saeed will be at a great cost to Pakistan. Things have changed. Now, as a matter of fact, Hafiz Saeed is having a different face. Let me connect the dots. Does the ISI require him or not? Well, he has become definitely dangerous because his presence over there is causing FATF and global isolation, etc. That is definitely one of the things. ISI doesn't require. It's a big embarrassment for Pakistan. So they give it a shape. ISI can finish him off anytime, anyway. But they want to give a face to it, that it is some inimical country which has done this. Second, if you recall, LAT was established by Hafiz Saeed initially in Afghanistan, along with the Pakistani Salafi, who was based out of Saudi Arabia, when Russians were withdrawing. That's the time. But then the LAT resources were put against Kashmir. So they require Hafiz Saeed to pursue the LAT content into Kashmir and also the instrument of state policy of Pakistan. But because of the pressure, they may not, because they are propagating now homegrown terrorism in Kashmir. Now the negatives, as far as he's concerned, he started a party called Milli Muslim League, which is a conglomeration of various religious parties. Second, there are a lot of elements who are followers of Hafiz Saeed, jihadi elements who've got into the ISI as also into the army. Thirdly, Hafiz Saeed is the one, time and again, who's been saying India should be scared of the nuclear capability of Pakistan and nuclear attack. So there is a fear always that jihadis may take over. Now, if Milli Muslim League comes to power and you have people in the armed forces as also the ISI, well, it could be possible. It's far-fetched. So they want to eliminate him, or they want to sideline him. How they do it is too premature to say that this was one of the attempts for the ISI or whatever it is. But even this coup attempt which was there were a couple of ISI officers also in that. Army officers, of course, were there. So this shows that the jihadi elements have also got into the army and the ISI.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, if you go back to 2013, the US Senate Select Committee, James Clapper or someone, he had made a mention, that is writing on the wall, words to that effect, that the jihadis are going to show their presence in Pakistan in a very big way. And a stage may come that it may become like the Hezbollah or the Hamas. That is the kind of threat which is there. And which are the elements which are likely to propagate? People like Hafiz Saeed. So it's time that he has to be neutralized. How? Well, that's a big question.
No, I agree with you, sir. The fact of the matter is that the recent unrest, civil unrest that we saw around the French ambassador and sending him back, the Tehreek-e-Labbaik, the entire ground force which was fundamentally out on the streets were all Lashkar and Jamaat-ud-Dawa people. It was their cadre who are there on the streets. Now, if they are willing to, they are now ready to spill onto the streets and they are going to take over. What does an establishment do? The establishment has brought them up and they did not know what to do with him. And they can't bump him off publicly. They can't pick him up publicly because the backlash is going to be severe. On the other hand, Sushant Sareen is shaking his head. I'll bring in Kamar Chima after Sushant Sareen. Yes, Sushant Sareen.
No, Anand, I disagree with you on what happened during the French ambassador's thing. Hafiz Saeed and his party has also agitated over the issue of blasphemy. But on the French ambassador thing, it was a Tehreek-e-Labbaik party, which is a completely different organization. That's a Barelvi outfit. And I don't think that, the Lashkar-e-Taiba guys, to give the devil their due, they are a very disciplined cadre. These are people, even when they've been asked to lie low, tend to lie low. They do not defy either the hierarchy within the organization or the military establishment. They might not be happy with what the military establishment tells them at a particular time in time because of the circumstances do not permit their activity, but they do not ever go against the military establishment. So to think that the street disturbances were carried out by these guys, no. But where I agree with what General Jambal is saying, these guys have the potency to actually cause havoc because of the number of people.
Yeah.
According to one estimate, almost 500,000 people have been trained jihadists of the Lashkar-e-Taiba over the years. And that's a very conservative estimate.
Right.
These are guys who have guns, they have ammunition, they have explosives, they have training, they have the kind of fanatical zeal. So this is a very dangerous organization which the Pakistan Army has raised. And clearly there would be serious consideration within the Pakistan Army. They've tried to break it up earlier in the past, but I think something prevented them from doing it. That is the standard operating procedure, that when a jihadist organization gets really powerful and very big, they then try and break it up into factions, which is what happened with Harkatul Mujahideen when Jaish-e-Mohammed was created out of it. And I can go on and on and on about how they played this game.
Right.
So maybe it is possible that some kind of signaling is happening from the ISI's part, but I don't think the ISI would go to the extent of actually wanting to bump him off. Otherwise, the bomb would not have been planted or would not have exploded where it exploded. They would have had the information that this guy was not in the house at that point of time.
Correct.
Although I have my doubts whether this picture is actually of Hafiz Saeed or of somebody else.
But someone like Gul Bukhari
that is
tweeting it.
anybody's
See, it is someone like Gul Bukhari who's tweeted it. So that's the reason
Yeah,
why I
Gul
put it.
Bukhari lives in London. I don't know how
No,
much.
that's the reason I put it out, and I'm qualifying it by saying that she has put out this tweet, and that's why I'm showing it there. So it is subject to confirmation whether it is today or earlier, but it is Hafiz Saeed in the picture. There is no doubt that it is Hafiz Saeed, but we just have to see whether this has happened today. But we are given to understand that this is just earlier in the evening that this development has happened, and this is shot of the Jinnah hospital. But Amjad Ayub Mirza, before I come across to you, let me ask Kamar Chima this. Kamar Chima, we spoke in the morning when the incident happened, and there was a lot of conflicting information that was coming through. But my first question to you is, are you relieved that Hafiz Saeed is alive, or are you worried that he's alive?
Well, I think obviously, as we know from the government, that Hafiz Saeed is in the protective custody of the state because of the cases against him. But the residence of the Hafiz Saeed means that his family might be living there. And since he's a high-profile target and his family is living there, so obviously there might be that there was a police picket there. So we need to look at from the state's perspective what the state is telling us. And above all, I think his house should not have been at such kind of a place, because there are other residential residences, obviously, and this has been a loss to many. Obviously, the state will take care of that, but the propaganda which is coming from India is laughable, and particularly your friend is saying about the army chief and the way you are talking about Hafiz Saeed. But in reality, I can tell you one thing for sure, that the FATF session is in process. India has been saying time and again that Hafiz Saeed must be brought to justice, and we also want that. So this could be one attempt by India to highlight the case of Hafiz Saeed when FATF case is in process. So nothing more than that. And obviously,
The
Hafiz
fact
Saeed
that,
will face
but
the cases.
Qamar
He
Shiva,
will face all kind of consequences for whatever he has done. And we believe the Pakistani courts will give.
no,
a
you
verdict which will be as
you are
per the
saying he's
law,
a prominent
and he will be
personality.
punished
You are
whatever
saying
law
the
he has
state
broken.
is giving him protection, and then you are saying that Hafiz Saeed should be brought to justice. You are refusing to answer
Why
my
then?
question whether you are relieved or are you worried that he is alive. And sir, you are yourself unwilling to call him a terrorist despite him being proscribed a terrorist by the.
Listen, sir, listen. Hafiz Saeed is a liability for Pakistan. I have said this many times. He is a liability for Pakistan, one. And second, he needs to be protected so that the cases could be pursued.
Oh.
If we will not protect him,
So,
how can we pursue the cases?
So he's a
we want courts
sir,
to punish Hafiz
sir,
Saeed,
frankly-
not India.
frankly-
The Indian
frankly-
elements in Pakistan should
frankly,
not kill Hafiz Saeed,
सर
but the
आप एक
courts-
बात बताओ
but the
आप एक
courts
बात बताओ
should punish
आपके
Hafiz
पूरे
Saeed
टेरर
as per
बेस
the
को
law.
अगर
This is
आपके
what we
पूरे
want.
टेरर बेस को बालाकोट में हम फोड़ सकते तो क्या 12 साल पहले
भैया,
हाफिज सईद को नहीं ठोक सकते
you
थे
keep on
सर
boasting
we
things.
if no I'm
You
just
are a
saying
credible
I'm
journalist.
just saying sir if India wanted to kill Hafiz Saeed and if India wanted to bump him off we did not need to even come into Pakistan or to Lahore to bump him off. We could have bumped him off when every time he stepped out to go somewhere else across the world, and it could have happened very quietly. So for you to say this is laughable, sir. We want to bring him to justice. We want to try him in our courts, and we want to bring him to justice. We want him to admit to the world that he did perpetrate the 26/11 attacks, and he's got the blood of innocence on his hand. So that is what we want to do. That is what we want to do. But let's just move away. Let's just move away from your propaganda. If Hafiz Saeed is a liability, then you are giving credence to what we are saying, that the establishment itself wanted to bump him off because he had become too much of a liability. But now, Amjad Ali Mirza, let me just come across to you. I don't know why you have to raise the decibel levels. Can we not have a sane discussion at a sane level with a sane audio? You don't need to shout for everything. सर अगर आपको पीने सर आपको आपकी कुर्सी चुभ रही है तो फिर तशरीफ कहीं और ले जाएं, कहीं और बैठ जाएं, लेकिन फिर आप चिल्लाएं मत. लेकिन मैं आपसे बस ये सर क्या कर रहे हैं आप कमर से क्यों चिल्ला रहे हैं आप? चिल्लाइए मत. मैं बस इतना कह रहा हूं, आप खुद कह रहे हैं वो आपके लिए लायबिलिटी है. तो आई एम सेइंग दैट द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट इज ट्राइंग टू बम्प हिम ऑफ वाया क्लैंडस्टाइनली सो दैट उनके सर पे ना गिर जाए. दिस इज एग्जैक्टली व्हाट यू वांट टू डू. यू वांट टू बम्प हिम ऑफ एंड यू वांट टू से इंडिया डिड इट so that you don't get the backlash. We are telling you we don't want you to bump him off. Hand him over to us if he is a liability for you. That's all we are saying. मेरी पूरी बात तो सुन लो. If he is a liability for Pakistan, hand him over to us. अरे सर, अरे सिंपल बात मैं आपको कह रहा हूँ, मैं आपको ये कह रहा हूँ, अगर आपके लिए लाइबिलिटी है, if he is a liability for the Pakistan, hand him over to us. We will get him to justice. हम कर लेंगे. Just now you said he's a liability for Pakistan. I said hand him over to us because he's the most wanted in our country. Hand him over to us. That's all you're saying. Okay, let's now move forward. The other aspect, the regional dynamics. Okay, ठीक है, okay sir, calm down. अरे कमर चीमा calm down. अरे कमर चीमा calm down. Calm down. If you wanted to try Hafiz Saeed and if you wanted to bring him to justice, आपने उसे 15-20 साल पहले कर लिया होता. You wouldn't have allowed him to perpetrate 26/11 in the first place. उससे पहले ही वो बहुत सारे कर चुका है काम, पर आपने नहीं किया. छोड़ दिया आपने, सर आंखों में बिठा के रखा हुआ है. छोड़िए. Let's move on. Sushant Sari, let's understand the regional dynamic. I'm just going to move away. Sir, मैं तो जो भी हूँ, but Hafiz Saeed is a terrorist. You know that. Hafiz Saeed is a liability. You have admitted that. So उसको just hand him over to us. That's all. मैं कौन हूँ, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. ठीक है, आगे बढ़ते हैं. Sushant Sari, now let's understand the regional dynamics. This entire refusal, snubbing of America, and the fact that is Pakistan now saying that the Taliban is enough for us to do our job.
No, that look, I don't. Everybody was just fooling themselves, and the Pakistanis are still trying to fool everybody else that we are not looking for a military solution in Kabul, and I think they are actually doubling down in favor of a military solution. They are telling the world that they don't want a forcible occupation of Kabul or the rest of Afghanistan. But this is precisely what they are doing, because every day, every single day, there are reports of many bodies which are coming back into Pakistan, which are Pakistani fighters who have gone to fight on the side of the Taliban. There is some evidence of Pakistani military people who are fighting out there. But frankly, the Americans have given a free pass to the Pakistanis for the last 20 years, and they're continuing to do it. Why they are doing it, what the American policy is, it's inexplicable as far as I am concerned. It doesn't make any sense, unless, of course, it's something very, very sinister what the Americans have been trying to do, even getting their own people killed. But other than that, it was always a no-brainer that the Pakistanis would completely back the Taliban. That was the only horse they had in play. But I don't know what's the big deal that everybody is making about it. We need to re-examine our own options, and we need to re-examine our own assumptions. Where this impression had been created that the Afghan army is going to be very strong. It's going to be able to hold on. There will be a prolonged civil war. This war will not be over very fast. But the way the districts are falling like 9 pins, I think we need to re-examine this thing. Right. This is precisely the kind of analysis we were hearing in 1996, that Kabul will not fall. And do you know what happened in 1996? Kabul fell without a bullet being fired. Yeah. Because the then troops under Ahmad Shah Massoud decided that it is better to vacate the city rather than have a last-ditch fight out there. So they vacated the city, and the Taliban simply walked in and occupied the city. So, I think we need to re-examine some assumptions with which we have been making our policy. We need to re-examine the war scenario which is unfolding out there. And we certainly need to question the lies and the dissemble and the deception of the Pakistanis.
Now the fact is there also, finally, Amjad Ayub Mirza, is there also a fundamental a shift which is happening in terms of the power equations? That within the Pak establishment and the deep state also, that it is internecine. And that's why those who are perhaps loyal, erstwhile loyalists, leaning away towards America or working in a particular direction, today with the Chinese coming in, they want a different kind of a grouping which has to come in. So that's why there are certain elements which are now being bumped off and they're being culled, so that there is a different kind of an outfit outside and also within the establishment, which is now brought up.
Well, that is, this question is a very, very important and sensitive question, and it's very hard to reply to you, to give an answer, direct answer. But you're very right, because after Bajwa and Imran Khan have refused to give these bases to America to contain Taliban terrorism in the region, America, there is a speculation inside the Pakistan military that by distancing themselves with America is going to cost themselves a lot in terms of money. And they are not happy with Bajwa. Our investigation team back in Pakistan is trying to figure out about this attempted coup on Bajwa, that what exactly were the reasons behind it, because there have been 1,700 dismissed Pakistani officers as well. But the crux of the matter is, no matter what happens in Pakistan from today onwards, let me say this absolutely clearly. Pakistani government of Imran Khan, his cabinet has approved an economic package worse than an IMF package, where Islamabad Airport, Multan Airport, Lahore Airport, M3 Highway, Pindi, Islamabad, Chakwal Highway, all are going to be pawned, rehan rakh rahe hain, girvi rakh rahe hain, in order to get 1,800 billion rupees. It has been approved. unless within the coming 2 or 3 days there is not a mass rebellion against this government, Pakistan is now going to nosedive. Nosedive, and Pakistan is going to crash. There are going to be a lot of groups inside the Pakistan army who will rebel against each other, against their leadership. You watch.
Well, we'll keep a close watch, and we'll take this forward also. We'll take this forward because there are dynamics which say that perhaps there is one faction which is asking these jihadi outfits or these outfits to form a larger alliance with the Taliban and to create a different grouping which will not be allied to the deep state, Pak deep state at all, and perhaps be allied to a new master altogether. We'll see how things pan out, and this what Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza says at this point, that Pakistan is actually pawning away its airports and key highways to raise money. To who? And what is going to be the fallout of that? We'll keep tracking all these developments. I thank all our guests. General Jaswal, good to have you with us. Sushant Sareen, Kamar Chima, and Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza. Coup poll of the day. As we wind up, and as I say thank you, we wind up debate number 1. The coup poll of the day. Johar Town blast. Is it a Rawalpindi plot? 79% of our respondents, and a lot of them have responded today, are saying yes. 21% say no. We'll take a very short break and we shift the spotlight ahead of the meeting of the Prime Minister with all the stakeholders and all the political leadership of Jammu and Kashmir that is scheduled for tomorrow. We focus beyond the valley, the real issues.